Time for the market report. Finally, a turnaround in prices.
Looks like row crops going up a bit and more on current cattle costs. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then we get a cattle farmer's perspective on the current markets. And finally, MSU livestock economist Dr. Josh Maples continues his talk on the cattle situation and the impact of New World screwworm. So, markets closed back on the upswing. Row crops getting the best of it while livestock split. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, corn up 22.5 cents, nearly a 6% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lumber, again, down 43 bucks again, more than a 6.5% decrease from the previous week. Earlier in the show, we talked about dairy farmers David and Will Gilmer and their conversion to beef cattle. We reached out to Will to get his thoughts on the current cattle markets, and it seems on the producer level, things are looking positive.
The process for cows, if you're running a cow-calf operation, it can kind of forgive some of the learning curve the way the market is right now. Just from a business standpoint, it just made a lot more business sense to make the transition over to beef and start in that direction and trying to invest the kind of money that we were going to have to do to keep our dairy maintaining at the level it was at while, the industry around us, the infrastructure continued to erode and whatnot. So that was a good decision. And then also just from a quality of life, I mean, it's not less work, but it's less demanding work. And so we're able to enjoy ourselves a little bit more than what we used to be able to. I would say probably the biggest impact that price has had on us was our original plan was with all of our half Holstein, half Angus heifers that we got, from our dairy cows that we raised up to be our first, brood cows. Originally we wanted to cycle them pretty through and hurry up and get past our first generation, get into second and third generation, and replace some of those original cows with something with bigger percentage of beef genetics. Well, the price of heifers has been so good that we've not replaced a lot of those original cows. We've just sold their heifers and gone on, and so the downside on that is those cows require more feed than a typical beef mama cow, just because they're bigger frame, they have higher nutrient requirements and whatnot. But they produce so much milk and grow such a big calf. I mean, it with the prices the way they are right now, we'd say that's a pretty good trade-off.
Now we continue Dr. Will Maples talking from a market analyst's perspective on how the cattle markets look currently, and just like with Will Gilmer, prices on the rise while demand still strong, especially for beef cattle and beef products. Dr. Maples gets into the details of why.
I think beef prices they're certainly higher now. They've continued to push higher because we've got tight beef supplies. We're not producing as much because we've got fewer cattle. So yeah, I mean, in the near term, I think we're going to see some stronger beef prices. And I would just throw out there that if you don't see stronger beef prices, given that you've got lower supplies, then you've got a demand problem. Because if supplies are lower and prices don't go up, then that means you've got some challenges on the beef demand side. And right now we don't really have those challenges, at least by not any large extent. So these stronger beef prices we're seeing really are just reflective of those really tight supplies and supplies getting even tighter. So I expect to see stronger beef prices 2025 and even into 2026 because of the low beef supplies that we have. Cattle prices have been increasing really over the last couple of years. You go back to really 2023 is what I would look at as kind of our transition year from a period of low prices into some stronger prices. 2024 was up, and then 2025 we pushed up even more. And I would argue over the last couple of months has been kind of the big jump. And so I do think this market is it's continuing to push to a level to when are producers going to expand? And producers are going to expand whenever prices are high enough that they want to produce that calf next year rather than sell that heifer this year or rather than sell that cull cow this year. And so it's all about producers' expectations of price in the future. And so I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing these stronger and stronger prices, because it's going to take those strong prices to lead to those expansion efforts that we're talking about. I do think New World screwworm, and even more specific, the closure of the border for cattle coming in from Mexico, I do think that is having impact on our prices, especially in the southern, you think Texas feedlots area, because we were bringing in over 1 million head of feeder cattle a year, and now we're not. And so that's a big deal, especially in a time like right now, whenever we've already got really tight feeder cattle supplies. So I do think that at least locally, that's boosted prices for feeder cattle, and probably at the national level too. Anytime you take that many cattle out of the production system or out of the feedlot supply chain, we've certainly seen some stronger prices because of that.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Looks like beef prices still competitive despite rising in supply and demand. That means supply doesn't meet demand.